Welcome back. You are listening to Within Tolerance, a podcast for machinists by a machinist. I'm your host, Dylan Jackson of Protean Machining, and this week I have two guests. First up, Chris Zappettini. Welcome back. Thanks for bringing along our second guest. James, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is James Meyette. I'm Senior Applications Engineer for Selway Machine Tool, and I'm really happy that you guys invited me on.
It's a pleasure.
It's going to be good.
So maybe before we get into your backstory, how did you two meet? Because you guys were supposed to have dinner a couple weeks ago, I think you said, and then, so how'd that all shake out?
Plethora was the first place that we met. After I had left, they bought two single table MX520s.
Yep.
I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
More or less for like Michael von Sothen to play around with.
MVS, the man.
Yeah. He would be an interesting guy to get on here too. That would be a fucking nutty one because people say I'm unfiltered. That would be a good one.
MVS would be a great guy to have on there for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But so that's where we first met, and I got kind of like, and that's where also I met Andrew Selway, and like, I think shortly after that, Meyette, we exchanged information, and then I think we had talked briefly about me coming on board as an applications engineer at the end of 2017, I want to say.
Yeah, sounds about right.
And then from there, we kind of just kept in touch, as I moved back to California and stuff like that. And then since I've started this, we've become we've worked a lot together, with like all these, cause I've been doing a lot of work for Selway, obviously. And a lot of that's been in like the Utah area with Matsuras. And as I've said on here a lot of times, like James is the best applications engineer I've worked with, and he knows the Matsura better than fucking anybody. So look at him smiling over there. He's blushing.
Thanks. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And so like anytime we're working, like he'll get into it for sure. But like we worked at one place for like months. Together.
Like
months.
6.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which was good. And like, that was like our first time really working a lot. And then we've continued to work, like done macro stuff together. And he, like, if I have questions about stuff, I call him, and like he'll call me about stuff and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it's been good. It's been a nice, like, symbiotic learning relationship. And like, we're friends too,
For sure.
I went to his place and had dinner with his wife and stuff, and him too, obviously.
I was going to say,
the wife says you're welcome back too, so that's always a good sign.
I drove my fucking van into that nice ass neighborhood, which, man, when I had drove that up to Boise, I didn't know this at the time, but like, this is a side tangent just about the van, but Jason lives across the street from his kid's elementary school, and I didn't know that. And some of the moms were like,
creeper van.
Dude, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
We're like, what the fuck is going on with that van? Your driveway, what do we have here? Whoopsies. Yeah. Anyway, that's generally how we met and stuff.
Well, James, I've had a few applications engineers on the show, but I always like to ask, what does your job involve? As a senior applications engineer, what does your day-to-day look like? Just because I think it's very interesting to see what different companies, what tasks they put on their applications engineers.
Oh, for sure. So my primary responsibilities are basically customer training and customer technical support. Not on the service side, because people want their machines fixed, not broken. So I leave that to the professionals. But how the machines function, how to do, any given task at any given time, how to combine tasks, things like that. And then part of the tangent from that is I'll spend time training programmers in various CAM systems, working with them to get their complete software set up and dialed in and to their liking, and then maybe training complete as part of my job description as well, and then whatever else comes my way that I can tackle. I'm not afraid to learn something new. Not afraid to fail. It's really the only way to learn. It's the only way I learn anyways. I don't know about everybody else, but.
No, that's killer. And you train complete because Matsura has come with a year of complete, right?
Right. So my complete responsibilities actually started back in 2007 when I started with Selway. At that time, Matsuras were imported by another company, and their requirement was that we were the primary training for the customers for complete, because complete was a separate entity, and they were not going to be responsible for training customers. They would be our support, but we were the customer support. So I learned it, early, and so once Matsura USA became a thing, they continued the relationship, and they asked me if I wanted to continue supporting the product, and I love the product. I can't say enough good things about it. So I said, yeah, sure, if you guys will let me. And then we partnered with NextGen we partnered with NextGen, and also with Matsura USA partnered with NextGen. So in a lot of regions, NextGen is going to handle the support. They will do some of the frontline stuff for me, but when it comes to going out to customers on site, that's where the proverbial magic happens, and I can answer all their questions, and they can come up with whatever scenarios, and we can work through that stuff face to face and scenario to scenario.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Let's step it back then. How did you get into manufacturing? How did you start this journey and get to where you are now?
Well, so I was dating my wife, and things were getting serious, and it was readily apparent that she was going to be the one. And my dad had been working for Cummins Engine Company at the time he had been there about 15 years. And so he knew that I was going to need a real career, because at the time I didn't have a real career. I was still hopping from thing to thing and not really have anything that was going to even remotely support a family. So, he said, why don't you come on and apply where I'm at? And it had always been my dream to work with my dad ever since I was a kid. So I went in there and interviewed for the job and ended up getting hired. So I started as a machinist there. Well, actually, I started sweeping floors, which is even better. You gain a certain level of appreciation when you start at the bottom and you kind of work your way up. You see a lot of processes, and it just gives you a better perspective to start at the lowest level possible, or somewhere close to that, and then work your way up. So I was there for a number of years, and then I think I was there for about 3 years. And they ended up closing our facility down. And when my wife and I got married, we discussed, what she was going to do, what I was going to do, and so on and so forth. And she was okay with being a stay-at-home mom, and I was okay with her doing that. And so that meant income responsibilities fell on my shoulders. So when faced with the plant closure, we had some options, and we talked it over, and we elected to not transfer to one of the other facilities. And so then I started working a bunch of different job shops and just doing different things. And let me go back to spending time at Cummins. So I was there for about a year, and we had a really great management team, probably 9 or 10 months into my tenure there. And they created this department called the Continuous Improvement Team. And this is back in the early 90s. So Japanese words in American factories were, you might as well say the F word at the dinner table. Yeah. Just not, they just weren't down for that cause. So instead of calling us the Kaizen team, they called us the Continuous Improvement Group. And they had a whole vetting process, and they opened it up for everybody in the plant to be a part of it. And they were going to pick 4 people. And I ended up being one of the 4 people that was selected. And so I was in that department for 2 years. And for my time in that department, I can't say enough good things about Jeff Irvin. He was our plant manager. And he taught us how to economically justify things. So if I wanted to spend, $50, okay, well, pick a number. What's that going to do for the company? And so we're like, okay, it's going to cut down on this. And over the course of 2 months, it's going to pay for itself. And then, and then just continue to do that. So he taught us how to look at things that way. So that was, a year into my manufacturing career. So they planted that seed early. And so I've always had that. And so, fast forward, I'm working in machine shops, and I keep that mentality in my thing, and trying to find another home, because I felt like I was going to spend my entire career at Cummins. I was on the engineering track. They were paying for tuition reimbursement for me to go to school. And my wife was really supportive. And so I was getting on that track, and then plant closes, can't continue with the company. So, just like life happens, things change. So we got to figure out, something else. I continued to go to school, even though we're paying for it out of our pocket at that point. And, I'm meeting people and networking and finding different jobs, but still not really finding a home. So I end up getting laid off from wind tunnel model shop, or I worked at a wind tunnel model shop and ended up getting laid off from there. And I called this guy that used to, a headhunter that used to advertise in CNC West. His name's George Shorts. He's a headhunter for the machine tool industry. He's since retired. And call him up and tell him, hey, do you ever get any jobs for programmers or machinists? And, every headhunter has at least a smidge of larceny in him. And so, so he tells me whatever I want to hear, just so he can kind of get me on the hook. And so he's like, yeah, I get those from time to time. Why don't you send me a resume and I'll see what we have. So he calls me back, and so the larceny turns off, and now he's like, I don't have those specific jobs. He goes, but are you open to something that's related, but a little different? So, I've got that time, I've got 2 mouths to feed at home plus my wife. And so I'm like, yeah, what do you got? Let's hear it. He's like, good. I was hoping you'd say that. So he then describes to me the job of applications engineer. And I'm listening to that, and I'm like, I could get paid to do that job. I'd do that job for free.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's like, oh, excellent, So this is around, I think, 1996, and he sends me on a few interviews, and I ended up getting hired at Mori Seiki. So this is Mori Seiki USA, Inc. It's not Yamazin, it's not Ellison, it's not any of the other machine tool dealers in the U.S. It's actually for Mori Seiki. And when I started there, I thought I knew machines. Well, I knew machines from an operator standpoint, but the under the hood stuff, the custom macro B stuff, the parameters, all the options, all the stuff, all the really fun stuff, I had no clue about that stuff. So I go there, I learn all that stuff. I get hooked up with the Fanuc OEM rep, who we still talk. He's still the OEM guy for Fanuc, and he'd help me out whenever I needed it, answer questions and whatnot, and so when the job was presented to me by Mori, they told me that the travel was going to be, I forget what the exact number was. Well, it ended up being close to 3 times that. And, the number that they told me in the interview, my wife was like, well, yeah, it'll be hard, but okay, we can do this.
Oh, and, no.
Yeah. And so it just starts getting out of control. So I'm there for like 2 years, around 2 years, maybe a little more. And my poor wife, man, she's ready to change the locks on me. And I'm like, whoa, time out. I go, give me some time to, figure something out. And so, my wife, she's gracious. She's like, okay, but, don't make this a, year-long thing to go find something. So I ended up, at the time, Mori was looking at having one CAM system throughout the entire organization. So I'd been a MasterCAM guy, and so we're bringing in all the different CAM vendors. We're bringing in Gibbs, we're bringing in Esprit, we're bringing in MasterCAM. I might have brought in a couple of others too, and so during the course of those discussions, I pulled one of their guys aside, and I go, "Hey, are you guys hiring by any chance?" And he said, "Yeah, as a matter of fact, we are. You interested?" So anyways, I end up leaving Mori Seiki and going to work for the MasterCAM dealer. And that was my first exposure to being directly involved with the sales process. And that was where I figured out I'm not a good salesman. And
so what was the current version of MasterCAM when you signed on? Just to give us some perspective.
This would be 6.13A or maybe version 7. So this is V7. This is not X7.
Right. I was going to say, I would guess that most listeners have never seen anything pre-X something.
Yeah.
Right.
So
X9 seems to be the one.
Just to give you a little more perspective, I first put my hands on MasterCAM version 3. So it was DOS. The whole screen was black. All of everything, all the menu stuff was on the left-hand side, and it was all green. There were no colors.
This was a history lesson that James gave me too, which is the .pst file, which is the MasterCAM post file, does predate the Outlook.pst.
Really?
Yeah, because it's like that came out like pre-internet.
Yeah.
MasterCAM like was pre-internet, like 80s or whatever.
Microsoft, like, those rat bastards. They stole. Yeah. Now you can't even send a PST file through the email because thinks that some.
Can you believe it?
Yeah. Right. So we got to rename post files TXT or something else, and then to send them through the email. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
How else can they sell OneDrive subscriptions?
Right? No, I don't want to save it to
and
OneDrive.
SharePoint. They're like, "Are you sure?
Yeah.
You don't want to use Edge? Are you sure?"
Yeah, you sure?
No.
Yeah, and it's
Why
like,
won't
I'm
you let me
positive.
uninstall Edge? No. Sorry, we can't have that.
So you signed up with MasterCAM, started selling it to, it sounds like.
Yep.
What happened there?
So the dealer was the Southern California dealer, CAD/CAM Consulting, another organization that I can't say enough good things about. I've remained close to the majority of the people that were there while I was there ever since. They're friends. They're not just colleagues and people that we share interests and whatnot with. They're actual friends. So while I was there, I did do some tech support. I did do some post-processor development, mostly the lightweight stuff, 2-axis lathe, 3-axis mill, maybe 4-axis horizontal on a sketchy day. But then I also had to go get sales. So, I wasn't particularly successful at that. I made enough to, keep food on the table and everything, but I was really struggling. Being effective in sales, you kind of have to have a killer instinct. Like it's hunting in a way, and you can't take no. You have to be able to, if somebody tells you no, you have to be able to move on. And then, it's a game of numbers. Somebody tells me no, I'm like, I want to go into the corner and cry because I'm like, well, why couldn't I convince you that this is the best thing for you? And so I ended up hitting the jackpot on a sale. I got like 6 seats. So I cashed out my chips. I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm done with this. I'll never see another one of these again. So that's it. And so Tom Sheeler, who's since passed away, he wasn't mad or anything. He's like, I wish you could stay on. And I go, yeah, man, this sales thing is really, really tough on me. So I ended up going to work for one of our customers back in a machine shop. So to back up, working at Mori Seiki, working for the MasterCAM dealer, that kind of a job is kind of like being a rock star. It's like that life. You're on the stage, you're out, you're touring around, you're going to all the places, you're seeing all the things.
You're behind the curtain.
Yeah. And then working in a job shop is kind of like being a session musician. Totally has its place. Totally important thing. Certain people are like that. That's what they want to do. They want to be a session musician. They don't want to go out. They don't want to tour. They don't want to do all that stuff. Me, I got a taste of that touring life and I'm like, yeah, I like that. So I end up working at one of our customers and I stayed there for about 3 years. And, I wasn't happy. They weren't happy. And so we ended up parting ways. And, from the time that I was working at Mori, working at CAD/CAM Consulting, and working in the job shop, or not job shop, they were actually an OEM for airplane components. So in that time, I had been doing contract programming and, just a few jobs here and there, nothing to speak of. Well, if you're halfway reasonable at doing that, you can actually earn a decent living. And so at there was a point where I was actually turning away more money than I was actually making on my day job. So with the blessing of my wife, I said, hey, why don't I give this consulting gig a go? Quite a few of my relatives were entrepreneurs. And so I thought, well, maybe it's genetic. Maybe I can be successful at this. So I end up doing that. I do that for a couple of years, and that's where I learned about business. Running a business is an extraordinarily difficult endeavor. There's
Preach.
the number of hats that have to be worn, and the smaller the organization, the more hats you wear. And so I had a good handle on the technical aspects of the business. I had a good handle on the scheduling and things like that. What I didn't have a good handle on is the business side of things, the keeping the pipeline full, the accounting. Actually, I was okay at counting. I was adequate at counting, but like generating business, contracts and things like that, that was really what led to the downfall. And I signed a contract where there was fine print to the fine print. And basically, I wasn't going to get paid until the parts got sold. So the parts could
no.
Yeah. So the parts could sit on the shelf for 30 seconds or 30 years. And so hey, that's 100%, that's my fault. I didn't do my due diligence on that front. Well, I ended up, before I realized what I'd done, I had gotten in, I think they probably owed us like between 30 and 50 grand or whatever. And my wife, she's like, hey, honey, these guys haven't paid and they're not answering my calls and this and that. I'm like, oh, let me go find out. And that was when I had found out that, oh, I'm not going to get paid until when? So luckily I still owed them a couple of projects. So, needless to say, I was pretty angry. And they're like, you signed a contract saying that you would, deliver these things and, you owe us. So I was like, all right, what can I do? So I finished the projects and I sent them password encrypted data. I go, you get the password when I get my money. And then I hung up. I didn't even let them say, we're going to sue you or anything like that. I just hung up. So they're calling back. I don't take their call for like a week, give or take.
Nice.
Might have been 2 weeks.
That's a really baller move.
Yeah, it is.
So then now this is a Fortune 50 company. They could have literally killed me and, I'd have been
fair
nothing.
job back.
Yeah. So anyways, end up taking the call and they're like, we need this stuff. And I go, you need to do better, because had somebody explained this, well, you should have read the contract. And I said, you know what? You're absolutely right. I go, but you know what? Doing that is deceptive. That's not a good faith contract. And, I may have to declare bankruptcy or whatever, but that's not a good faith contract. And there's nobody that's going to say that is. So anyways, we end up working something out and I ended up getting paid, but it was a few months later. And so then I go, well, I get money, you get your codes. And so yeah, so
I forgot them. Sorry.
So no, I did what I promised. And so I gave them their codes, and in the meantime, I'm like, what, I've got to go. I got to go find a job. So I end up going back into another company. Now this company was a CATIA house, and I had no experience with CATIA.
I don't think a lot of people do.
No, it's very difficult software. So I told them, I said, you know what? If you guys train me, I'm definitely willing to be trained. I'm not an old dog. I can learn new tricks. And fortunately, I had enough solid modeling experience. And if you understand some of the core principles to solid modeling, you can work within just about any system. There's some rules, and if you apply certain rules, it makes things a lot more streamlined and whatever. So I end up learning. They promised me training. I think if I had to guess, I would say I might have gotten 12 hours total, which for CATIA is.
They're like, this is how you open a file.
Right.
And this is how you save a file.
Yeah, I can make a sphere. I can make a box.
So fortunately, I had enough CAD experience that I was able to navigate the assembly and doing all. So the CAD, I totally felt comfortable with. Programming in CATIA, that learning curve is long and steep. It's extraordinarily hard. And if somebody doesn't take the time to train you, or you can't go to school to go learn it or whatever, you're really going to have a tough time with it. So needless to say, I did not survive my probation period. So I got fired, and really it was kind of a relief because I was not enjoying CATIA. Now, just hold on to that statement for a little bit because it gets interesting a little bit later on. So anyways, we part ways. I'm still picking up a little bit of contract work here and there. So the wife and kids are getting fed, and, we've got a roof over our head and everything, and things are lean, but, the Lord provides. So, I end up calling up my old headhunter, George. Hey, George, how's it going? And so he takes my call, and we catch up, and he goes, update your resume, and we'll see what's out there. So I update my resume, send it in to him, and then I tell him, he's like, when can you start, and this and that, and so update my resume, send it to him. I hang up. I want to say later that day or the next day, I get a call from Bill Selway, and who's the president of Selway Machine Tool. Now, at the time I didn't know who he was, and I didn't know who he was to the industry. So I let it go to voicemail. I call up George, and I say, hey, George, I've got a call from this Bill Selway guy. He goes, shut up, call him back, and then call me back. Okay, roger that. So I call up Bill, and we talk for, 10 or 15 minutes, and he says, we got your resume, and I'd like to talk to you. And so we schedule an interview, and so I go and I interview, and we spent probably, maybe 30 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes talking shop. And then the next hour and change, we talk about coaching our kids' sports teams. And, and at the time I was coaching two of my kids' baseball teams at the time. So we're just trading stories back and forth, and just getting to know each other. And I felt good about it. And so, I get home, and there's an offer in my email. I get home, I call up George, and he asks, how'd it go? And I said, I felt really good about it. And he goes, well, we'll see what comes of it. So they end up making an offer. It was less than what I needed, and less than I thought I was worth. And so my headhunter did some negotiating and got me up to what I could live with. Because at the time I had a couple other offers. I had one offer that was an insane offer, and so my headhunter was kind of interested in that one. And so we run down the details on that offer, and boy, it was a good thing that I didn't take that job, because the cannibals there would have eaten me alive. There was internal people that were up for the same position. So when an outsider takes that just never ends well, ever. We end up taking the position and starting at Selway. Now, Bill ends up telling me the whole story once I start. So while I was at Mori, one of our other engineers, Henry, he was working for Yamazin at the time. And one year when I was doing cell controller, horizontal machine linear power pool cell controller updates, Henry was taking me around all the customers in his territory. So we spent a whole summer together. Henry was just awesome. Henry Lear.
Henry Lear. Okay.
Yeah. So awesome guy. We both love sushi, and we got along great. Well, anyways, Bill gave my resume to him, and he sees the name. He's like, James, yeah, hire him. He's like, well, you didn't even look at the resume. He's like, no, I know him. Hire him.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's hot.
Yeah. So I am forever grateful to Henry Lear for recommending me to take the job here at Selway. So I've been here at Selway since first working day of January 2007, and there's been a few economic downturns in the industry between 2007 and what are we, 2024 now?
And like the whole world too.
Right. So I've been able to weather the storms there, and now, believe it or not, in our department, I'm the middle guy. So Kyle's our most senior guy, and then Henry is next down on the list, and then there's me, and then there's Lance, and then there's Kevin.
That's saying something good, because I mean, I think everyone in this industry knows that people don't stick around at companies very long, especially at machine tool distributors and service and all of that.
It's like people are trying to like fill out a bingo card.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, exactly.
Is something occurred to me. I think it was either earlier. I think it was last year when I kind of figured it out. So applications engineer is kind of a stepping stone job for the vast majority of people that take on the position. Mm-hmm. They either realize that this job isn't for them and they go back into a machine shop, or they are trying to get into the sales position, which is where the real money is at.
Yeah.
And so me, by the time I had gotten to Selway, I'd made enough career mistakes where it's like, you know what? These are the things that I need to be. These are the things that I need to do to be a good employee. These are the things that I need to do to keep my skills sharp. And this is a place where I think I can do that. And, Bill Selway's he's since passed away, but he gave me all the freedom that I needed to really dig down into machine tools and learn a ton and pass along a ton of information to our customers and try to make them better and make everybody on our team better and all those things. And so I've really kind of taken that to heart, and that's why I think that I've lasted so long here. And we have one of the best sales teams in the whole machine tool dealer network.
Big shout out to Connor.
Man, the majority of our sales team have been with the company for their tenure is measured in decades.
Wow.
And it's not that they've just gotten comfortable either. I mean, these guys are out there, they're grinding year in, year out. We have a great lineup of machines to satisfy somebody who's just starting out to satisfying, tier one companies. We have something for just about everyone that's not the same line. We have Matsura and MCM and CR Onsrud for their respective, top level stuff. And then we have commodity machines. So in some of our territories, we sell Haas, and then kind of, step up from that. We've got Washion in some of our other territories. So we really are able to meet a customer's need, not just, oh yeah, we have this in inventory, this is the best machine for you. It's like, no, that's not how we sell. We take a look at your application and then we say, well, we've got these 3 machines that fit your budget, fit what you want to do. And so let's look deeper. What else do you want to accomplish to help us narrow down what's really going to be the best thing for them, and the thing that we end up ultimately quoting them and hopefully selling.
Right. Well, and that's how you maintain customers, is by doing the honest sale, not the, oh yeah, this machine's perfect for you, even though it doesn't fit 90% of your work.
Right.
And I've seen it in action with like multiple salesmen in multiple territories for Selway. Like it is pretty impressive to watch a guy be like, we don't really have what you need. It's like, you're better off, like you could buy that or whatever, but like, that's like, I can't compete with you. So I'm not gonna like drop my pants or give you a solution that you're not going to be happy with. Like it is like one of the cultural tenets that Bill Selway, that is lasting beyond Bill Selway, which is just like, it's a long game, it's like, it's about making the customer happy. And I see this a lot with like Connor Selway, where he'll, even if a potential customer doesn't have a machine, he'll call me and ask and see if I can help them, or I'll have James try and help them, and he'll just try and help them solve a problem, even if they don't have any equipment in the building, because it's just like, it's just such a interesting tactic, as opposed to like, you don't have my equipment, fuck you kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah. No, that's the kind of salesman and sales process that I love. That's why I buy the machines that I do, is because of experiences like that.
That's why you're going to move to Idaho in a couple of years, so you can get into that Selway territory.
It's just so I can hang out with you guys.
Yeah, for sure.
So when you first hired on at Selway, was it in applications engineering, or was it service tech and then you moved into applications?
No, I've never been on the service side.
Okay.
My second son, Brian, is actually a service tech for Selway Machine Tool. We got him in.
How cool.
Yeah, we got him into the company, I think about 5 or 6 years ago. But no, I've always been on the application side. And I want to say somewhere around 2010, I ended up becoming the applications engineering manager, because Bill needed to take some stuff off of his table. So I held that position for, I want to say about 2 years. And then Bill's like, hey, you don't really seem like you're enjoying that. Everything okay? And I'm like, I really don't like people. I just want to show up to a customer and make the customer happy. Can I do that? He's like, yeah, you can do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I imagine that being an apps engineer is really nice, because you're there on all of the good days. Service techs come in and it's like, oh, I crashed the shit out of my machine and I really need your help. Whereas you're like going in and you're like, let's do something cool today, or like, let's talk about your new machine that just showed up and train you on it, kind of stuff.
Yeah, but I do see those bad days too, because like a lot of times, customer, maybe they don't like fully understand a function or whatever, and so they're misapplying something, and it's it's creating bad parts. It's surface finishes.
Really
look like a beaver went in there and just chewed on their part or whatever. And, it's like,
that's a very political statement. You did a good job there. Diplomatic.
and they're pissed. They're like, well, I bought this Matsura, damn it. It should be cutting, my parts should look like jewelry. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, you know, so I let them chew on me for a while and let things, you know, kind of die down a little bit. And then it's like, okay, let's, and a lot of times I'll take notes. Like if something's, like if what they're telling me is really technical stuff, I'll take some notes because my memory's dog shit. So I gotta write it down. And then I'm like, okay, let's tackle these one at one, you know, one at a time. Or, hey, these two things are related, so we're gonna deal with that, and this other thing here has to do with something else, and then we're gonna tackle that, and then they get calmed down, and then you know, we solve their problem.
Awesome. Well, speaking of things written down, we've got some questions from listeners. First up, Possum Solutions asked, he'd be curious about the support for older Matsura 5-axis machines. There are some tempting ones out there. So how far back does Matsura stock parts? How is it dealing with them to get parts for older machines? All that good stuff.
So my personal time frame for Matsura equipment is machines that were built right between 2004, 2005 up to now. Henry, he's got some experience from probably late 80s through that. So that gets us through Yasnak controls. That gets us through Fanuc 16, 18 series controls on up to the latest 30, 31 I series control. So if the machine's got a Yasnak control, there's really a good chance that we would be able to provide technical support for that. And I actually went out to a customer it's actually here in Salt Lake City. So I had never put my hands on a Matsura that had a Yasnak control. So I went out there and I was very upfront with the customer. I said, I'm going to come out and I'm going to spend time on your machine on our dime. I'm going to learn about it, and then I'll teach you what I learn about it. So I was able to figure out how to load programs, change offsets, do all the basic functions, and even a couple of the recovery functions, as well as get them machine manuals for their machine. And then I spent a day with them on their dime, and you know, got his machine connected up to their RS-232 in the shop, and as far as I know, they're still making parts on that machine. And that machine was built the month before I graduated from high school.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a big Yasnak fan. My Kitamura first machine in our shop was it was an i80, but actually J300 hardware behind the scenes.
That's what I have
yeah.
on the Matsura. It's fucking awesome.
It's so good. Yeah.
Runs circles around like some modern machines. It's kind of crazy. It makes you wonder what they would be doing now if they were. It is one of the things that I wish for so bad is like, man, like what would their controls look like today? Because they were way ahead of their time. It's like, I'm sure like when you were going through that machine, it's probably one of those things where you're like, this machine's how old and it was doing this?
Yeah.
You know, like, because like Fanuc it was just like leaps and bounds ahead of Fanuc like for the same age. And you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, because that era machine on a Fanuc control, probably looking at about the 3 series, you know, maybe a 6, but somewhere in that range. And yeah, it's very, very primitive control. I think unless the machine tool builder properly optioned it, you know, you're looking at basically 3.5 axis. Helical was an option that not every machine tool builder put on the machine back then.
Classic.
And it was just crazy. So
Yeah, and it's worth noting too to anybody looking at those older Yaznek that Yaskawa has all of the control manuals for free online.
Yep.
So like you'll still have to find the machine tool builder ones, but like that was the saving grace for us buying the Kitamura. It was like, I don't know how to run this at all, and like I could download the programming manual and the service manual and everything, and Yaskawa still provides some service for them. I mean, you still have to fly them out from California or Chicago or whatever, but
right.
I was pleasantly surprised with how much was available.
Yeah. And I either have or have access to almost every single Matsura manual ever created. Now, beyond I don't know what the year was when they stopped scanning documents and then started creating actual documents to PDF. So some of those older manuals you can't do text search on. You've got to go page by page like it's a physical book. But yeah. Now as far as parts and stuff go, because Matsura still lives, it's not like you're trying to get a part for, say, Hitachi Seiki. Mori Seiki bought Hitachi Seiki and they killed everything. They just Mori didn't kill the Hitachi engineers. They blew it up as they were leaving. So, that if you got a Hitachi Seiki, my condolences. You're in a rough way with that machine. But Matsura,
another builder that I wish I would love to see a modern Hitachi Seiki, because we had one of those at my last job, and they're
so fast. They were so fast, and it's like, why are you so fast? You're like 30 years old.
And it was so rigid. It was like a double column machine, and it would just walk all over most of the machines in the shop, just because it was so, like, it was such a tank.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So parts, obviously the older the parts are, the longer they'll take. They tend, no company can keep an infinite supply of parts. So the older the machine, the longer you may wait for a part, but you should be able to get most things. And then, once you get into the mid 2000s, early to mid 2000s, a lot of that stuff is actually stocked locally. Fanuc, for the way that they do things, the fact that they will maintain inventory on parts for 25 years. Once they've decided that, hey, we are stopping production on this, you're going to be able to get parts for that thing for 25 years after that. That's
cool.
That is, Siemens, no. I've run stuff like the Achromatic A2100 that was, run on the Windows NT. Yeah, if anything goes out on that thing, it's a boat anchor. Forget
go
about
on eBay.
It. Yeah,
good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Fanuc, you can get options for those older machines. You can get, if hardware fails, which is, something that doesn't happen too often with Fanucs. You can get those things. They're readily stocked in Chicago for the most part. So yeah, don't necessarily shy away from that old Matsura if you're looking at it. And now, like technical support, a lot of that's going to depend on, who your local dealer is. Because of the reputation that I have, I've actually gone into other regions of the U.S. and companies have paid to have me come out and do training for them. So, my company will hire me out. So, and I have an awesome wife. All of our kids they're all adults now. So my wife's like, yeah, go do what you need to do. And a lot of times she'll come with me when we travel and stuff. So yeah, if I need to travel across the U.S., cool. If I have to travel out of the country, that'll be on a case by case basis. But yeah, I'm game for it.
Awesome. So Jeff Tiedekin, Yeti Man, asked who built that green cart. So I posted a picture of an MX330 with a PC10, and he said, who built that sick green cart? And also, what's the wildest setup that someone has wanted to do with the apps team?
So Yeti Man built that green cart, and I didn't know this until I had asked somebody about it, or maybe, I don't know. I think I posted a picture of it on Instagram, and then Jeff told me, "Oh yeah, I welded that up for the guys," and so yeah, Jeff Tiedekin, just a fantastic customer, cool guy to talk to, really super knowledgeable, manufacturing, welding, just all around cool dude. Let's see, wildest setup. So unfortunately, I don't get to do some of the wildest stuff out there because my time is, I can't spend 3 months at a customer. We just can't do it. So yeah, that's where my man Chris just bails us out of all kinds of mayhem. So he's done. I've seen him do some amazing stuff with fixturing, especially like the Rock Island Armory stuff, and that part for Oracle, the second op fixture for Oracle Arms, that's just badass. There's another company that does stuff for us.
Oh yeah. Amrock. Those guys.
There you go. Yeah. So I've seen them do some pretty impressive stuff as well.
They make some crazy. They did those crazy tombstones for Columbia Energy.
Yeah.
And on the end shoes. Yep. Those were sick. Those were crazy.
Yeah.
Well, how about the wildest thing that you've been a part of? What's the one that sticks out in your head? Like if you're looking your crowning jewel up till yet, what's the one that you go back to and you're like, yeah, this one I knocked out of the park?
So I would have to say it was probably, I can't say the name of the customer, but it was for a surgical component and fits in the palm of your hand, and it has to look like jewelry, and the tolerances on it were insane. We had 8/10 profile tolerances all over the place. And you see this gray hair? I got a lot of this gray hair doing that project. So
it's an LF project?
It should have been.
It wasn't?
No. And if it would have been, I would have less gray hair.
Yeah, what'd they do it on?
They did it on a horizontal.
Oh, jeez. Ew.
Yeah. So
assholes? They're like, I bought the wrong machine for the job, and I don't want the liability or the accountability for making bad parts. So it's on you now, brother.
So the decision to buy the piece of equipment in question was made actually before I came to work for Selway, and
dude.
So when I got there, I ended up asking the person that made the decision. I'm like, why did you go horizontal and not go MAM 72? And he's like, well, I wanted a linear pallet pool system. And I go, but that really wasn't the right application for that. You made the project, the process, so much more difficult than it needed to be. Well, he just made a bunch of excuses. So anyways, fast forward maybe a couple of years, he ends up leaving that company, and I'm just getting reamed by this customer.
Fun.
Like, why did you sell us this machine? This and that. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I go, that decision was made before and they're like, well, what would you have done? And I said, well, hindsight's 2020. I said, if you were bringing me this project today, this is the machine that I would use. And I said the LX 160. And they're like, well, why would you do that? And I go, because the thing's friggin' lightning fast, and and it's a sub-micron machine. So these 0.8 tolerance parts all day
It's a
long.
mile for that thing.
Yeah. Every day, twice on Sundays, just
Oh shit.
all day,
Yeah.
And so anyways, they were just not happy. And so yeah, but it's like, in order to make those parts on a daily basis, they needed a real machinist, and they only had one in the house, and he was busy doing R&D stuff. So, the scrap, like, I could go there and run for a week. Every single one of my parts would be good because I'm torquing the bolts. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm checking incrementally and all those things. I worked hard, but the process was manageable. We hand it over and, the operator gets it, and they're not as detail oriented as a machinist. And so stuff starts to go out. So yeah, so that I think was, looking back at all the parts that I've made, that's probably one of the crowning jewels of, like, you know what? I made that part. There's not many parts that I can't make.
Yeah.
That's killer. Chris, do you want to take the next one?
The Brody Huck one? Yeah. This guy actually reached out to me too. MX330 user here. While the machine slaps, how do you manage the Renishaw laser given the blocked beams about 22 seconds after you leave the shop? And so really what he's asking is we small through coolant drills, that where the coolant will just the coolant will break the beam, or it'll be like, it'll say that it's broken when it's not broken or whatever.
Yep.
And I was meaning to get back to him on that one. We ended up doing at Oracle is like building in a tool change to release all the pressure before we checked it.
Yep.
And that's kind of what did it.
This might be a good part to discuss laser troubleshooting in general, because I've heard that's also a common issue on poorly set up horizontals.
Yes.
With, coolant dripping from the ceiling, setting off the beam early and things like that. So
yeah,
give us some common steps to troubleshoot lasers and ways to fix, these really annoying broken beam errors that pop up constantly.
Yeah. So horizontals are particularly problematic because it's raining in there. There was coolant dripping out of the ceiling. I mean, if you were to get inside of a horizontal machine after it's been running high pressure and face mill for a while, you need a raincoat to get in there. Otherwise, you're going to be a mess when you get out. So that poses problems for lasers. And so, one of the things that you can do, obviously the easy one is to let it stop raining for a little bit. Another solution that I've seen people do is use the air blast and they'll direct it, up, or they'll have, they'll set up an air curtain inside the machine that blows air, when it's time to come and do a broken tool detection check. Now, the problem that Chris spoke to and what Brody Huck is his problem. Yeah, we've done that before, where do a tool change, takes all the pressure out of the system, and then bring the tool back in and then run the check. Does it take a little bit of time? Yeah. But every tool measurement system has its own problems. There is no perfect tool measurement system. Laser has its problems. The touch style have their problems too. So yeah.
Right. I had also heard, and tell me, I've never tried this because I've never had a laser, but switching from light to dark detection to dark to light detection can sometimes help with that, where you're rapiding into the beam and then checking it on the way back out versus, checking it into the beam.
And that's how bloom works, to the best of my knowledge. And we probably have fewer problems in that respect with the bloom but we have other issues with the bloom. So it, just depending on what, what the customer ends up looking to do is what we decide whether we go bloom or rent a shop.
Mhm.
What's your favorite? If you were speccing at a 330, what would you put on it?
So
Oh,
it
shit.
would depend on what the smallest diameter tool that I had intended on running. I tend to favor touch style, honestly, because there's you get fewer false broken tools. I tend to manage my tool life, so I'm not really worried about broken teeth. I'm not going to be checking the form on my end mill or whatever. So, those are the things that laser is, really built for doing. It's checking things that you can't really check with touch style.
Awesome.
Yeah. On that note, I'm really partial to the Bloom Z Nano. I love that fucking thing. It's so good.
I've got 3 of them, so I fully,
Yeah.
fully agree.
That's the one where you can check like what 8 thou diameter tools,
Dude,
and they don't break.
It's
Yeah.
such a
Yeah.
like, because most people don't check diameter,
No.
so it's just like it's
Yeah.
just such a good. It's number one. It's like crazy affordable relative to other probing systems if you just buy it by itself, and it's super fast and super accurate. It's rad. And then like I guess a step up from that would be the the next option would be like TS-27.
Yeah, that's why I always, when customer tells me, what should I get, I would just say yes, because what do you need to do? Do you
Right.
do you do a lot of small diameter stuff? Because if you do, nothing's going to beat that bloom.
I would love to see a Bloom on the back of MX330. That would be interesting. I've only really seen them with the NC4 on there, but I'm sure it could be done. And then
Skip signal is a skip signal.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you asked like some troubleshooting stuff, like a surprising thing that can trip you up on lasers is air pressure. Air pressure affects the beam quite a bit more than you would think. And like if it's too high or too low, it'll affect how it sees the transmission, especially when on a horizontal, when they're typically really far apart. That can be really fucky. But like typically when it's like this far, it's not too bad. When it's on the stationary one, a lot of people see on a vertical, it's just the stationary, like where they're like 3 inches apart from each other or whatever. Like, but air pressure is something to look for if you're having trouble with like the beam connection. The beam being out this way, if you're doing the setup for the first time, the beam alignment is such like a weird process on an NC4, because like it'll do it and then it just stops. It hits an M0 and it like, you're like, what is it doing? What it's telling you to do is go into the macros and look at variable. I think it's 100 and 101,
Yeah.
100, 101, 102, I think.
Yeah.
And that's telling you like how far out it's in, like in X and Y and in the Z into the spindle.
Yep.
And why it stopped on an M0 where it was is to give you the opportunity to dial it back in and then run it again. And so it does that. So you don't have to go through the arduous process of like, because you can do it manually where you like run the laser back or run the calibration tool back and forth across the laser. Like it's an indicator essentially. And you're just seeing the beam go. And if you're really fancy, you could bust out the multimeter and see how the voltage is changing as you run across the beam.
That's how professionals do it. I don't know how to do it that way.
Yeah. But like really that's what the spindle, like that's what those numbers are for. And like realistically, like in terms of like XY and the angle, that mostly doesn't matter to people because we're not really checking diameter. It's this way and the how it is in relation angular and like I guess the YZ or XZ plane or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Is where it'll get you, because like if you have an 1/8 inch tool and a 3/4 inch tool, and you need to blend those together, if you have an angle, obviously it's going to hit the edge of those tools in different locations and do whatever. So it's kind of it's a little bit easier to dial those in, I found, than like a TS27. It's like those are the two things I would say to look out for is air pressure, number one. It sounds silly, but it's one of those things that like you don't think about it because you just don't think about it. So just check it, make sure it's correct, and then just check to see if you're out in Z if you're having issues. Run your beam calibration, beam alignment takes like 5 seconds. You know, it's like 0 time. It's totally worth it just to check every once in a while.
Awesome.
For sure.
Next up, Easton from Mori Manufacturing asked, why should I get an MX330 PC10? So what are the benefits? What do you like about them? All that good stuff.
So the MX330 PC10 is a really good entry level.
Entry level, he says. $550,000 entry level.
Entry level multi-pallet system.
Yeah.
So you have 10 pallets, you have 90 tools. It's a good size to get into that. The majority of the parts that are that a lot of people do generally will fit in that envelope. Obviously, there's customers that do bigger stuff and even a lot of customers that do smaller stuff. But
that's where the 420 comes in.
Yeah, the 420. But like if you don't need, over 100 tools and you don't need a large envelope, you can get a good amount of part density on that small envelope. You can put a little tombstone in there and run that thing. So
we just did a project. We put 12 parts on a single pallet.
Yeah. So I did a proposal for a customer that just bought one, and part of the machine proposal was we put 4 of these parts on some pallets, and then for the second op we loaded it up so that I want to say it was 6 first op pallets and 4 second op pallets, and runtime was going to be 42 or 43 hours. So
wow.
You could walk away from it for that long.
That's killer.
Yeah. So if you're just exploring that unattended, I want to try to get it to run through the weekend thing, the MX330 is really a good machine to take a long, hard look at. You get tool life management with the Matsuura. You get, a ton of program storage. You get, depending on who sells you the machine, you'll have your tool measurement system. You'll have your probing system. You have all the 5-axis functions that you need, tool center point control, tilted work plane, so you don't have to program off a center rotation, which I think is absurd in this day and age. But that's another discussion.
20,000 RPM, for 550, 600,000, depending on what state you're buying it in, you get basically, it's kind of one of my favorite things about how Matsuura is doing this. Because you'd really only have, I guess, you could get the single table MX330, but they don't really import it. It's really only imported as the PC10.
Yeah.
And so it's you get it's one flavor, no a la carte, but it's you get everything, all the functions. You get what they call the triple stack, which is high pressure coolant, mist collector, and chiller, as part of that. Plus probing system, because why wouldn't you have the probing system? 90 tools, 20,000 RPM, data server. It is like I was laughing because it's like entry level is kind of, it is funny to think about it that way, but like really,
there's entry level Ferraris.
Yeah, that's
Like-
true. But it is like, it is for the money. Like it's just such a good, it's really good bang for the buck. Cause like the step up is like a MAM 7235V or like a Yazda PX30i or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're going to spend like $800,000 to
Plus.
like $1 million
Yeah.
on those machines. And it's
And your
almost like,
footprint too. You
Yeah,
know, it's,
yeah,
you
big
know,
time.
the MX330 is
huge.
probably about half the size
Mhm.
of the MX is about half the size of the MAM 72. you
Yeah.
know. But
That's
you know,
sick.
the MAM 72, 540 tools, 32 pallets. And actually, if you want to change, there's some factory options that you can actually get more pallets in that same footprint.
Yeah.
So, what do you want to do? That's
You can get 40. Like we've been working, James and I have been a part of a proposal for like over a year in the Pacific Northwest. You know which one I'm talking about.
yeah,
We
I know
can't
exactly
talk
what you're
about
talking
it.
about. Yeah.
But it's we've been working on it since like September of 22 or December of 22 or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's still ongoing. I just got information from Blue Photon right now.
Yep.
And it's like, well, we're close. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're like, we really need to, the customer though is like, because of this is like, I always say like aerospace fast, because they're like, oh man, we really got to get going on this. And it's like, I could watch paint dry. I forgot, like, I thought this came and went because
Yeah.
it's been going so long. And it's like, oh shit, that's still going?
Yeah.
That'd be a 40 pallet variant of a Cublex.
Cublex 35.
Basically the same thing, but it turns.
Yep.
Okay.
But also cool thing about the MAM, just real quick, is like it has a tailstock, so you can like kick 90 and then tailstock comes out and programmable tailstock to like hit the part for thin stuff. That's neat. And piggybacking of all this on why he should buy the MX330, Mr. Easton, is like people theoretically complain about the pallet clamping thing because it's like a Capto. I have multiple times maxed that fucking table out, in diameter and in height, and really have no issues. Like we went from a single part on the middle of the table, ripping with the Frasia, the AX FPS, to 3 at the very edge of everything, and I changed nothing. It was exactly the same, and it cut exactly the same. It is seemingly not so rigid, but it's pretty fucking rigid. And like I was saying before we got on, like we're cutting parts and they're consistent to each other and like from one side to the other because of the tombstone and the pyramid, where it's like they're cutting at like a 40-degree swing and like, I don't know, like 8 Z inches or something from the top of the pyramid to the bottom of the pyramid. And it's dead nuts side to side, which kind of answers Aero Method's question.
Exactly. So you guys can both answer this. Are they as
accurate?
accurate as they say?
Yeah.
Can I rant on pallet size for a second?
Yeah.
Or a minute?
Yes, please do.
So the number of times that, that people will say, oh, I really like the, MX or the MAM 72 or whatever, but man, the pallet is so small that it's like, well, what do you need to do? I mean,
Yeah.
they don't, I think that people truly don't put it together that the larger that whole thing is, when you tip it over, now you have to get that much further away from it so that you can even get to it. So
Yeah.
Matsuura is one of those companies that they're an engineering company. They make CNC machine tools, but they're an engineering company. So like when they design something, they have a purpose for it. It's not just, bigger is better. That is when you're looking at 5-axis machine and you're trying to not hit stuff and you're trying to get, the closest to the table that you can get and all those things. There's so many factors involved in that design. And I think that people just get away from the big tables, that you're causing yourself way more grief than you need for zero benefit. If I need a big table, I'll because I'm going to have a subplate no matter what. So I put a subplate on it for whatever diameter I need to, clamp or grab onto something, and then go from there. I don't lose any rigidity. There's just really no benefit to these massive pallets that I see on so many 5-axis machines. It's like your design is bad. I'm sorry. It just is.
I also have another rant. I have a rant on top of this rant, which is like people that have like no pallets or whatever, and they're like, 10 seems limiting. It's like, bitch, you have none. Shut up. Like 10 is pretty good compared to 0, Right. And the other one is,
how many hours can you run that one pallet unattended?
Yeah. And the other one is people that buy machines based on things that they might do, which is kind of like the real piggyback off of what James is saying. It's like, well, this seems limiting because what if I need to do this? And it's like, how often, like, are you turning away work for that? Like, it's like, well, I do this now, but what if? And it's like, you're going to buy a machine based on a what if? That's insane. Like, just buy the machine for the work you're doing now, unless you're turning away like a shitload of work that makes sense. You know what I mean? But like, then why are we even talking about this piece of equipment?
Well, and especially a specialized piece of equipment like a palletized 5-axis. Like, you're not going to do everything on one of those, period. And like a 850 is not going to be a great thing for 330 size parts, and vice versa. Like,
no, we had a customer that bought MX 850 with the 700 millimeter table.
Holy shit.
It's the big table.
That's huge.
I think the standard size is like 500 millimeter, and then they have a bigger table. So they were really adamant they needed that bigger table. And he has the machine for maybe 6 months or whatever, and he's like, "Will it void my warranty if I machine the pallet down a little bit?" And I'm like,
"Oh
wait a
my
minute,
God.
What?" He goes, yeah. He goes, that diameter is just getting in the way too much. And So I go, we'll void the warranty. He's like, okay. So he waits until the warranty on the machine expires. Then he machines it down to a more manageable size. And he's like, much better.
Yeah. If it's 500 to 700, like, I don't know, like how you wouldn't think like, oh, my tools to get to center might need to be 100 millimeters longer.
Right. Exactly.
That's like a lot.
That's like a
huge.
Full tool holder that a lot to use is 100 millimeters.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me double check on that size really quick.
Yeah, for sure. But no, I mean, like it is like the MX330, most Matsuras, and then I guess like my sales pitch to Easton on the MX330 PC10 and why he should go. Like James hit it home for me, and this will resonate with Easton specifically, which is they're basically like the Nakamura of Japanese mills, like they just make a really good piece of equipment. Is it like, people say the same thing about Nakamuras too, which is like, they're ugly. And it's like, I think you say that. Have you said that? I don't care if they're ugly or not.
It's the light. I don't like the user, like standing in front of it, they're very dark and they're very cavernous the way that they build them.
It was Dennis that said they were ugly, and it's like, dude, relax.
I just don't care if it's ugly, if it's making me money. But if it sucks to be in front of is where I'm like,
right. Yeah. The sexiness of a machine. It's like, if I wanted a sexy machine, I'd buy a DMG, but I would probably never buy a DMG, but that's just personal preference,
Right. Yeah.
Like it would, if I could buy a machine, it probably would be the MAM 72100H, just because I want to do fixtures. And like, if I want to do fixtures for stuff, like it tends to be, that would be a good machine to do it on. But yeah, super accurate. Love it. Can't say enough. I mean, like, I wouldn't be doing Matsura projects if I didn't think I could be successful, and I wouldn't be doing these like wild things if I didn't think it was possible, you know? And they stand up to, like, we've done stuff where it's like, it's stretching the limits to a certain extent, like the biggest pallet you could have and the biggest tool you can have at the same time. And, like they just, and they make good parts. And like every project we've done on an MX330, they're just like, we've done like checkups or whatever, and they just are running. And it's like Connor Selway came in today while I was at Oracle, and he was there for a second, like one machine, like we were troubleshooting and updating the process on one, and the other one was just cranking the whole time. And Connor was there for like, we chatted. He was there for like, maybe he called me. He's like, hey, let me in. He was there for like 15 minutes, and he's like, all right, bye. And they just work.
That's awesome.
Rock Island, same thing. They just fucking work. It's
Right.
sick.
Yeah, and that table size was 700 on the big size, and
That's
then
just insane.
and then the standard is 5.
Like,
Yeah, I would never
Why?
get it. No.
What are your feelings on the little outrigger tables that you can get? I think on the 850, like the little side ones that you can bolt other stuff to that's not rotary. Isn't that one of the options?
It is. So on a single pallet machine, I think that's a really good feature, because it typically on your 5-axis part, you're going to have like a dovetail or maybe some prep op so that you make sure that you're gripping onto the part solidly for that second operation. That's probably going to machine somewhere between 90 and 95% of the part away. And then on that other side, you can put another vise or some work holding fixture to remove the backside, because you still have tilt. You don't have rotary on the wings, but you still have tilt. So depending on the size of the part and how creative you can get, you can actually, you could do one piece flow on that machine.
That's super cool. All right. Last question from One Ear Tim, past guest, says, first, who is your favorite Autodesker? What's your favorite tool? Your best advice for younger people joining the industry? And how many years have you had a companion pass with Southwest?
Okay. My favorite Autodesker, man, that's like asking me who my favorite kid is. I can't, I don't have a favorite. I love them all. No, but, One Ear Tim, just a fantastic cheerleader for the industry. I mean, there's really not enough guys like him out there exposing education to the cool factor of what we do, of what's possible in this industry.
Well, you guys share a part of your backstory where you both were doing your own programming business for quite some time, or, a little bit of time, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah. And, he rode BMX when he was a kid. I rode BMX, I still will get on my bike from time to time and go out and do some tricks and stuff. And then, Al Watmo, just a great guy that is really championing, CAM for the masses, getting kids involved in manufacturing, for not an arm and a leg. And I mean, it's just the things that they're doing are, some things that I wish, other CAM vendors would take seriously, my favorite tool. Let's see. Well,
oh boy,
hammer.
the probe.
Not what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
No, it's that's my favorite tool is it's the right one for the job.
Oh fuck.
Pass,
Pass, hard pass.
It's really funny because a lot of people will ask me, oh, who makes the best tools? And I'm like, and I follow it with a bunch of questions because it's like, well, what do you want to do? What kind of material are you cutting? Do you need to reach far into there? Can you use a holder to get into there? Just there's a lot of prep questions that you have in order to get the customer to the best answer for them, because what might be the best tool in this situation isn't going to be the best tool in another situation. So
well, let's phrase it like this. Whose catalog do you pick up first when you're trying to come up with a turnkey? Who's your favorite tooling manufacturer that you go to first if you need a solution?
So for cutting tools, I will generally start with Kennametal, and then I'll go to Frasia, and then I'll go to either OSG or Mitsubishi. Usually between those, I'm able to handle, the vast majority of stuff. And then for some of the smaller stuff, I'll usually end up in Harvey's catalog.
Awesome.
My favorite tool holders, that's no secret. I'm going with RegoFix PG collets. Those are just so badass.
Yeah.
You get the gripping strength of heat shrink without the finite lifespan. As long as you treat them right. If you don't treat them right, you're gonna have problems. But yeah, no, RegoFix Power Grip.
New cool board collets are dope. Like,
yeah, I'm not gonna hear any disagreement from either OS, I don't think.
And then work holding, I've got a few favorites, again, depending on what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Mate vices, made here in the USA, up in, I think, Minnesota. Kind of on a comparable basis, I like Shunk. They make some of the best self-centering stuff. Plus, they've got a wide variety of offerings for work holding. And then I still love my Raptor stuff. Man, the interesting trivia point for Raptor. So the parent company that started Raptor, when they bought their first MAM 7235V, the first prototype of the RWP-001 was our training part.
That's fucking cool.
Wow.
Nice.
So
cool.
So not only does Raptor make good stuff, it holds sentimental value as well.
Yeah.
That's killer.
That is really killer.
So what about your best advice for younger people joining our industry?
There is no better trade to get into than machining. Welding's badass, don't get me wrong. Being an electrician, that's killer too. But like, when you think about what a machinist does, there is not a thing that any one of us touched today that was not in some way, shape, or form affected by a machinist. Nothing. Yeah. Literally everything. And to me, that's just, you can work on, maybe parts for a phone or something like that, or stuff that flies in space, or stuff that goes on race cars, or things, that make working your way around a kitchen, worthwhile. And it's just such a wide variety of things. And I would say that get into it not for the money, but for the love. Because if you get into it for the love, the money comes. If you get into it for the money, you won't stick around. You won't stick around in it long enough to make the money. Because the reality is, in order to get up into that top tier wage earning capability, you're going to have to put in, around 10 years. It's plus or minus depending on a lot of factors. Where, location. But yeah,
and who you know too.
And who you know, and like, definitely carry some weight.
And like, I'm going to like, I guess, well, I think we're all probably going to contribute to this one, right? So I would say like right now is a really, really good time to get into it too. Like it's never been easier and more affordable to learn how to do like certain like CAD CAM on your own time. And like the community that's around Fusion 360 is like pretty incredible and like very helpful. And like there's so much information out there on how to do just about anything. And like Instagram is such a like is a tool that like the Instagram community for machinists is really, really awesome. I mean, there's obviously some haters out there, but fuck them.
I mean, that's how we met, was through
Yeah.
Instagram.
Exactly. Yeah. I thought you were going to say like from hating.
I had my big old cup of haterade this morning, man. I'm ready to go.
I mean,
Yeah,
I mean,
game
like,
recognizes game, you know.
yeah.
Like,
I mean, I am a professional hater, that's for sure. But no, I mean, like this is, and I think like I say this all the time. I don't know where I first like heard it or whatever, but I think there's like you have like the right solution and the solution right now kind of thing. And like everybody's afraid to like break shit, you know? And I think it's fine. Like people like don't be afraid to like fail and crash and break tools. Like the best way to learn is by doing, especially like if you're even remotely interested in this trade, you're probably like a creative person and you like to do things. So like find a makerspace and, you know, get on like a router or like their hobbyist CNC machine, whatever the hell that thing might be. It might be like a Prototrack, or like if you're lucky enough, there'd be a place with like a used Haas or something that'll let you program it with Fusion. But like just if you're interested, I mean, I guess I'll throw it out there. Like if you're interested, like reach out to any of us. We'll talk to you, you know, and help. Like who's that new Shrat, you know, she like, the girl, she like reached out to on Instagram or whatever. And we chat all the time. And now she might be like an apps engineer for Morris South or something like that, which is crazy. And yeah, it's like, it is just such a good time, especially with like, we're about to see like a pretty massive paradigm shift with like automated CAM and just automation in general, and getting in now is kind of interesting. It's like, it's almost like getting in while like CNC is on the verge of like when CNC started to become popular with like manual machines, like you're about to see like the industry change in interesting ways. And it's cool to be like a part of that and like in it while it's happening, and possibly be able to affect that change.
Yeah. Now's the time to start climbing that ladder so that you are much further ahead for sure.
Yeah.
And like it's such a weird thing to like say too, but like, and it's uncomfortable at first, but just be like crazy aggressive and ask all kinds of questions. Cause I think that's how I got where I am now, is just by being like aggressive with like meeting people, you know, and having like I saw James, I could have left him alone and ignored him, but I didn't. It's like, oh, I've heard about this guy, I want to talk to him, and now we're friends.
I'm thankful that you didn't just go, who's that old guy over there?
yeah. Like it was, especially because like I've been in the machine tool industry. Like I always like to talk to machine tool guys, because like especially once you like know, it's like being in a club. Like it's like on a side tangent to the advice part. It's like once you're in the machine tool industry, people will have different conversations with you than they will if you're not in the machine tool industry. It is very interesting. Like I've had lunch with people where it's like, so you guys do XYZ, and like it's like the curtain drops and it's like, all right, so we're gonna have a real conversation. like
I'm not selling to you anymore. Let's talk.
Yeah, I know. Like you can tell me whatever, but I know. But like, but that being said, all that to say, like, ask lots of questions, take lots of notes, just talk to everybody and anybody about anything. And you're gonna like, the hardest thing about doing that is being able to like discern who the fuck is lying to you, you know, because you're going to meet a lot of people initially until you know what you're doing that are just total fucking bullshitters. And it's going to take a little bit of time. But like once you really, the best way to do that is like being open to trying anything and everything is cool, because whether you think it's going to work or not, or even if like you have no idea, so you're going to try whatever, trying everything lets you know what does and doesn't work for certain things. Cause like, for instance, on this project, like it's like run into some issues and it's like, I think it's this, I think it's that. And it's like, why? And it's like, well, fuck it. We'll just try it. Cause like, if it doesn't, like you get a definitive data point, no matter what, from trying something. It either works, check positive, or it doesn't work, check negative. I know that now. Now I definitively know something and I have data. Like,
sure.
So just try. Whether you think
like
it's going to work or not, just try.
Yeah, I like that a lot. All right, James, what about the last one? How many years have you had a companion pass with Southwest?
I believe 3. And it would probably...
So what is a companion pass for those of us who are uninitiated?
Companion pass means that you fly enough that they think it's worth their while for you to allow somebody to come and fly with you, and they come free.
Oh, wow.
Or for the taxes. So it's, $11 a flight or whatever. Like 11 or $22, something like that.
It's $11.20.
It would be more, except I fly too many different airlines based on where I'm going, so I can't necessarily stay loyal to one airline. Although being here based in Salt Lake now, I'm spending
Delta.
a lot more. Yeah, I'm spending a lot more time on Delta Airlines. So could end up. I don't know if they have a companion pass thing, but I could end up with a pile of points with those guys.
Yeah, they got some kind of stuff going on, but they're expensive.
I do love Southwest though. The air transportation doesn't need to be any more elaborate than a bus. I just need to get where I'm going. If
I will hard disagree with that. Like if I'm on a 6-hour flight from like Seattle to JFK, I don't want to sit in a bus for that much time.
So my wife and I, we've flown from Northern California to Hawaii on Southwest.
Yeah.
So, whatever. It's not going to be any more comfortable on any other airline. It's just going to be uncomfortable no matter what.
Yeah. I would disagree with that for sure. Like,
well, now if you're sitting in first class,
right.
then
I don't pay for first class, but I fly enough that like I get upgraded a lot. And I'll tell you what, like it is quite the enjoyable experience when you take a red eye from like Salt Lake to like New York or Boston, and you get to like lay down a little bit and snooze.
It is. I don't take very many red eye flights. I think I've only had to take, not counting my trips to Asia. I've probably only taken, maybe half a dozen in my career. So it's not,
sure.
It's
lightweight,
right? Definitely
like half a dozen just this year, baby.
I'm surprised you didn't say this month.
Yeah.
That brings me to shop news and new things. What's new either in your life or what's going on with Matsuura that's new that people might not know about? What do you want to share?
Well, what's new is in the next 2 months, I'm going to be going to Matsuura USA because they're going to be unveiling the latest interface. So right now it's Myos 3, which is the FANUC IHMI with the Matsuura overlay and all that stuff. The next one is Myos 4. So we're going to learn what that's about, what that's going to do for our customers, and then how to train for it. That's new. Something kind of new is, so I was born and raised in Southern California. My wife, myself, and 2 of our kids moved with us. My son that works for Selway and his wife and children, they came with us. And then my youngest son, he came with us. So we moved from Southern California to Utah in August. Did that for a number of reasons. One of the work reasons was now it puts me more centrally located in our territory, north to south, than Southern California was. So now I'm about equidistant from Bellingham, Washington, as I am to San Diego, California, which are the north and south extents of where I go.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, I bet that's very convenient now.
Yeah, and it's a free. This is a free state, man. I already bought 2 suppressors. I took possession of my first one because regular people in California, you've not been able to own a suppressor since 1968, the year before I was born. So all the things that I was not allowed to have in California, man, I'm going to do my best to own them all now.
Like a kid in a candy store,
right?
Going
I love
nuts.
it. Yep. I love it. All right. Well, that brings me to the last 2 questions I ask every guest every week, and you both can answer this. First up, what did you research this week? Doesn't have to be manufacturing or machining related, just what's been popping up in your browser.
I'll go. For me, it's just been a lot of work holding stuff, doing proposals and stuff, which is nice. Also, I've been getting like hot and heavy with Premiere Pro, which, I mean, like, you guys saw the Walter edit. So beautiful.
It was good. I enjoyed it.
And that's kind of it for me. I've also just been like cranking, like full tilt this week. So, I mean, I guess it's only Tuesday, but
oh man, yeah.
The best is yet to come, but we're good.
What about you, James?
So what I researched this week, somebody reached out to me in MasterCAM forum, which I've been a part of since the second month of its existence, I think. And he's got a 2012 Hyundai Wea machine with a FANUC OIMD control. So I haven't spent a lot of time on that control. So he's asking me questions about high-speed modes and, what can this machine do and why isn't it doing what I'm expecting it to do and this and that. And so, he sends me a copy of his parameters and stuff like that. So what I was researching is, what can this thing do? And so we found out some things and I think we've got, and then because I spend so much time on the FANUC control, I know what parameters to make the machinist's life easier and more convenient. Don't delete MDI stuff after it's done. Don't alarm out when you run into the over travel and have to back off and hit reset, just a lot of convenience, things like that. So I gave him a list of things that we know about and stuff like that. So the OIMD, I don't know how,
one of my least favorite controls, if I'm being honest. It's so gross.
The MF is way better. The MF is essentially the 30i, 31i.
Right. It's like, it's
max
bells and
control
whistles.
axes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't have like the 64-bit RISC processor or whatever, but like the D in general is just like disgusting, and I hate it.
Yeah. and the other thing I'm researching. So for Christmas, my youngest son got me a book about the SR-71, which is my all-time favorite aircraft. Man, that thing is just so badass.
Yeah.
And if I could choke out,
well, where
this
you
will
going
probably
with
get
that?
me on another list. If I could choke out Dick Cheney, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Just for the fact that he killed the SR-71, that rat bastard. What a
That
piece
should
of
be
trash he was.
That should be the tagline. That's the title of the episode right there.
Joke out
James
Dick
James
Cheney.
wants to joke out Dick Cheney.
Well, I've recommended the video before, but if you haven't seen it, James, there's a guy, Nicholas Means, that does these excellent talks at developer conferences, and one of his is all about skunkworks.
Yeah.
And he's got a big part in it about the SR-71, and it's very worth the listen.
The book Skunkworks, written by Ben Rich and Leo Janos. I probably go through that book once a year, maybe
Nice.
once every 2 years, just because there's so much.
Just gets
There's
you
so
hyped
much-
as fuck.
I mean, the stuff they did in the 50s and
Yeah.
60s, it's like, none
That's
of
a big-
what.
That's a big plug too, where people are like, I need a 5-axis, I need this, I need that. It's like, bitch, we went to space. We built the SR-71 with manual machines, you fools. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, with
Yeah,
high-speed
I love
steel
Kelly
tools.
Johnson's
Yeah.
his rules for operating
Yep.
at Skunkworks. Like I've always looked back on those because it really shows like what you need to do to operate quick and fast and still make, some of the most amazing planes we've ever built as humans.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, today, Kelly Johnson, I think, would be an HR casualty because he was, I mean,
Yes, he would be.
that guy was salty as hell, man. He would not suffer fools. And, he was not about he had a job to do and he was doing it and nobody was getting in his way. And that's all there was to it. You either get aboard or get off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Heard that,
Yeah.
brother. And I guess a quick plug on the SR-71, Evergreen Aerospace Museum or Space and Aviation Museum in McMinnville, Oregon has one. They also, which is like super cool, and you can get like right up close to it. They also have the Spruce Goose there, which is the Howard Hughes Hercules plane, and you can go inside that thing too. So I've been there like 3 or 4 times. Highly recommend if you're in Oregon. It's like 2 hours outside of Portland. So fucking cool and absolutely worth the trip. They turned a 747 into a water slide there too.
Wow.
It's pretty dope.
Just as a side then too, since you might be down here soon, the Pima Air and Space Museum in Tucson has a SR-71 as well.
Sick.
Nice.
I am going to be there. I booked my flight today. I'm in there Thursday to Sunday. Yeah. So yeah, I'll see you on
Awesome.
Saturday.
If you're ever in the Lincoln, Nebraska area, the Strategic Air Command Museum, they've got one
Okay.
inside there and can get like really close to it. And they've got it like
Nice.
it's kind of up on stilts and stuff. So you can walk around underneath it and
That's crazy.
full
Full of jet fuel
yeah.
just dripping on you.
right? Get your raincoat on and get rained on. Man.
I love it. All right. Last question I ask every guest every week. What are you doing to become a better person? None of us are perfect. We're all working on stuff. What are you working on?
Who? I've actually been working on, so let's see. I think in 2017, my coworker Lance, don't know exactly why, and he probably wouldn't tell me why anyways, because he's such a cool dude. He turned me on to Jocko Willink's podcast and Extreme Ownership. And I think the real reason is I needed it. I needed to stop blaming other people for my garbage. And so that's a constant thing that I'm working on is, what areas of my life do I need to take ownership of? And what do I need to do to fix the things that I can fix? And why am I not doing it?
I love that. No, and I could tell it even in your storytelling of that contract you signed. You immediately said, 100% my fault. I didn't read it carefully. I should have read it carefully. And, those were the first words out of your mouth. So
Yep.
you're clearly living it.
living it,
That was
loving
a heavy.
it.
That was a hefty tuition payment, as some people would say.
Yeah.
No
yeah.
joke.
School of
Seriously.
hard knocks, baby.
Chris?
I'm gonna co-opt yours from last time, just being like more present and like continuing to focus on work-life balance and stuff like that, because like I'm starting to get a little busier, and I'm quoting and things are starting to like hit now, which is cool. Like I just got a PO to do training in Maryland in like a week and a half or whatever, and it's really hard. Like I was talking to the guy who runs the shop at Oracle today. That's like the amount of energy it takes to not like just throw myself into like as things get busier. It's like because I just want to like just devote my life and be like, all right, I guess, but like I can't do that. I shouldn't do that. Like, like just such a constant effort to be like, maybe I should like, I'll work like half a day on Saturday instead of the whole day, Like,
Right.
I mean, after we do this podcast, I'm going to take a nap and then I'm going to drive back to Idaho. But, as you do.
Because you're a madman. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
The long drive, boss.
It's only 6.5 hours. It's pretty short. But don't roll your eyes. It's fine.
No, I think I find it, to interrupt you, like I find it, you know how it's very easy to fall into being lazy because it's like
Right.
a very, easy state to be in. I also find that like the opposite of that is true. Like it's much easier for me to be an absolute maniac about work and just like literally be running 1,000,000 miles an hour
Yeah.
than it is to try to find like the balance of like, I need to turn it on here and then turn it off here. And like, I find that so much harder than just like working myself to death for some reason.
I worked with a guy who, it was the craziest thing because like he was the biggest asshole I've ever worked with in South Carolina. When you were working, he was like, he was really fucking intense. And literally as soon as he clocked out, it was like a flip switched. He was just really nice all of a sudden. Like we saw him at like, I mean, it was a classic like Southern thing of going to like a mudding event, and we saw him there and he was just drinking beers and he was like nice and stuff. But it's like when we were working, he was no joke. Just like, it was like, he's like, we're here to work. Like, fuck you kind of thing. It's like a superpower. It's insane. Like,
That's crazy.
I just don't have, maybe one day, but probably not. But I just don't have that in me it's nuts. What about you? What have you been researching? And what are you doing to be a better person?
Well, I mean, research has just been like shop stuff. Like, we need new tables. I need to learn how to crimp Ethernet. I need to do everything all at once.
Any secrets for that? Because I need to learn how to do it too.
Crimping Ethernet?
Crimping Ethernet, get pull through Ethernet, I think they're called.
Yeah.
So instead of deadheading in the plug, it actually shoots out the front and then it crimps and cuts them off.
Okay.
It's way easier because you can actually check your work before you crimp on a connector and then realize that it's bad.
All right.
Yeah, that was, thankfully I Googled some YouTube videos before I started doing that because everybody was like, oh, I switched to this and now haven't made a bad cable in a really long time.
Yeah. And it's crazy because like it doesn't cost like hardly anything more, if anything at all, No. I
didn't see a big difference at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I've been researching, just trying to get our shop in order. And, I bought 6 or 7 tables because we needed to add all this table space, and then that wasn't enough. And so now it's like, I got to order more of those, and not a lot of research, but more just like, okay, we need to make everything work.
We're burying the lead kind of, but the fucking Hermela's in the building.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's in the building. It's under power. It has air.
Yeah.
It will be installed hopefully this week if the tech is available.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah.
So is
I'm
Kevin going to come in and do the training, or is it going to be somebody else?
I went to their HQ 2 weeks ago for training for the week. And so I think I'm just going to be, off to the races with it.
All right.
And kind of just working my way through it after this.
Well, Kevin's in your backyard, so you need to bug that guy. Kevin O'Neill.
O'Neill? Yeah. Oh yeah, he's my salesman. Kevin is fantastic.
We used to work
so you
together.
know Kevin.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've worked together a couple of times in his career.
Oh, okay. Because he commented on my post for questions. He was like, "Who is that guy?" And I just thought it was like a Hermla Matsura rivalry thing. I didn't realize that you guys knew each other.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. No, Kevin was by last Friday. Actually, he came by just after the machine was delivered and came and we went to lunch and hung
Right
out.
on.
So
Yeah.
Hell,
Yep.
yeah.
And then I don't know, as far as bettering myself, I have fallen back into the habit of like getting no sleep. And so I'm just trying to back myself out of that again.
Dylan, come on.
Yeah.
Are you
Like, it's like,
married?
I am. Yeah.
Does your wife tap you on the shoulder and go, "Hey, Dylan, it's time"?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah. And if I listened, I'd be a lot more rested person.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, those are the big things right now. Trying to get more rest, trying to also, be present and have a little bit better work-life balance. But thankfully she's very understanding. She knows, this is a very stressful time for me and I have a lot to do. So it's all working out.
Yeah. No, I have an amazing wife that she's the only reason that I can do what I do. Just no question about it. She lets me do my thing and supports me in all the crazy. And man, so this month we'll have been married 30 years.
Wow. Congrats.
Thanks.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'll make you a
That's
cake.
fantastic.
Yeah. Right on.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for taking the time to be on the show. I really appreciate it. James, it was so fantastic to get to meet you. Like I said before we started, I've heard so much about you from so many different people that to put a face to the name and really hear your backstory, I do really appreciate the time.
Oh, I sincerely appreciate you, letting me on here and I'm really thankful for what you're doing for the industry. It's more important than you know because I mean, man, go to college, do coding, I mean, just there's that just droning on. And it's like, you know what? There's guys like you and other people out there that have a visible social media presence. And they're like, no, man, manufacturing, pretty badass. You should seriously think about doing it. So thank you very much for taking the time to preach the manufacturing is cool gospel.
Mm-hmm.
It's my pleasure. As someone who is still paying off student loans because of that kind of rhetoric and going to school and then being like, oh, this is not for me. And then finding, oh man, all the cool shit I wanted to do as an engineer. Like I can still do that as a machinist and a business owner. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if I can even prevent one person from, racking up debt and get into this earlier, we'll be happy.
So just so people know too, I barely graduated high school. And I mean, by barely, I mean, they let me get out of there because of pity. My high school GPA is like 2.14.
Yeah, they're like, my God, look at this loser. We got to get him out of here.
And the only reason I graduated is because in the last 2 years, I did 3 years worth of work.
Nice.
Otherwise I wouldn't have graduated.
Holy shit.
So I was a hot mess as a student. So, and I don't think I'm anything special. So if I can do it, if somebody else wants to do it, there's a good chance that if they've got a reasonable head on their shoulders, they can do it too.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
That is awesome.
Well, on that note, thank you both so much. Thank you to all the Patreon members, new patrons, Greg and James. Thank you so much. It lets me send people like you microphones and headsets so you guys all get good audio. Thank you all for listening, and I'll be back next week.